forces of the left are now. There's a deep anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli bias on the left. There are a lot of people on the left who would be very happy if Israel disappeared tomorrow, and who feel 100% on the side of Hamas, even while it's firing rockets at Israeli cities. So I think what we've seen is that over the last 30 years, a growth in the anti-Semitic behavior on college campuses and a growing willingness by some Democratic politicians to be very openly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. And I think the second thing is that a lot of the younger militant members, whether they're anti-Israel or not, they are deeply opposed to Nancy Pelosi trying to exercise any discipline at all.
She's not the speaker anymore, clearly.
Pelosi is about...
Yeah, she's not.
Well, she's clearly losing... Look, she is losing control of the House. They may be forced in a desperation move to change the House rules to block Republicans from offering anything, which would, I think, lead to chaos. But she can't get her party to stay together. And if you're in a moderate district, if you're in a district that Trump carried, or if you're in a district that's heavily Jewish, and you're watching the Democrats go crazy, and you are a Democratic freshman running for re-election, this has to be a really decisive moment.
All right.
Who do you stay with?
Let me ask you this.
No.
So you come to power with the Republicans for the first time in 40 years. You and Bill Clinton decided you wanted to do great things for the country, and you ended up doing it. And I'm not a big fan of Bill Clinton, but you did balance the budget, which we haven't done since, and a lot of welfare reform, so many big things. He even said the era of big government is over, end of welfare as we know it. You guys found a way to govern, even though you had opposing views. You see now the Russia collusion narrative is collapsed. So now they just move on to the next thing, which is the widest net ever cast to basically look into any and all things Trump rather than govern. How does that end?
Well, I think it's going to end very badly, but let me be clear. This is not an investigation. This is an act of hate. These are people they're basically saying, if you work for Donald Trump as a private citizen, we're going to try to destroy you. We're going to make you hire lawyers. We're going to make you go through public humiliation. I mean, these are normal, everyday folks who are not in the political arena. They're going to get called in front of some of these committees, and the most radical, vicious, nasty liberal Democrats are going to feel that they have a right to beat them up, to humiliate them, to lecture them. And I think this tells you, I mean, we're moving. I was thinking about, James Tarantino wrote The Hateful Six. He could have written, The Hateful Eight for the Democratic Committee chairman and made a movie out of it. Well, we have never seen, at least not since the Civil War, the kind of deliberate, vicious character assassination. Not just at not at the president. I mean, President Trump's a big guy. If they want to fight with him, he can fight back. They're going after everyday folks.
When Adam Schiff hires, when the author of the Steele dossier, Christopher Steele, doesn't support his own dossier, but Adam Schiff hires the only conspiracy theorist and person that does believe it, that tells you a lot. But when David Axelrod says, this is beginning to look like a witch hunt. This is like, and Mayor Bloomberg says, this lurch to the left, not going to end well. When people like that are saying things like that, I think if I was a Democrat, I might listen, but I don't see any hope that they ever would.
Well, you don't know what's going to happen yet, because the truth is, as all these candidates line up to run for president, I don't think any of them want to get in a fight where the left is taking them on. So you see, over 100 Democrat House members have co-sponsored a bill that eliminates any private sector insurance. That's a 15% position. You're going to see a Democratic Party unacceptable to most Americans.
No cows, no planes, no cars, no combustion engines. Everything's free, and we're going to confiscate all your money. Great idea.
And no children. Remember?
Oh, yeah, you got to think twice about ever having any kids. And the world's ending in 12 years.
Tonight, Democrats are trying to minimize the self-inflicted damage from comments viewed as anti-Semitic by one of their high-profile freshman lawmakers. We're also at this hour awaiting the sentencing of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. First, the Democrats and anti-Semitism. What was once thought to be an easy fix, a public resolution, has turned into a political football. And Republicans, and even some Democrats, are saying the Democrat leadership in the House is fumbling that football. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel starts us off tonight from Capitol Hill with a vote that just wrapped up. Good evening, Mike.
Brett, good evening to you. The vote was 407-23 with Iowa's Steve King voting present. But this has been an epic struggle all week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi forced to defend one of her controversial and high-profile freshman members.
It's up to her to explain, but I do not believe that she understood the full weight of the words.
A reference to Minnesota Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who suggested those who support Israel have dual loyalty, and that being opposed to Prime Minister Netanyahu and, quote, the occupation is not the same as being anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic resolution noted that the House of Representatives condemns anti-Semitic acts and statements as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values that define the people of the United States. But after an internal battle among Democrats, the name of the resolution was changed to anti-hate, and it was broadened to include a wide range of bigotry victims: Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and others with verbal attacks, incitement, and violence.
We're sadly living in a time in this country where we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, a rise in Islamophobia, a rise in racism and bigotry.
Rallying to Omar's defense, some of her fellow high-profile freshmen. New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been tweeting her defense of Omar to nearly 3.5 million.
One of their high-profile freshman lawmakers. We're also at this hour awaiting the sentencing of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. First, the Democrats and anti-Semitism. What was once thought to be an easy fix, a public resolution, has turned into a political football. And Republicans, and even some Democrats, are saying the Democrat leadership in the House is fumbling that football. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel starts us off tonight from Capitol Hill with a vote that just wrapped up. Good evening, Mike.
Brett, good evening to you. The vote was 407-23 with Iowa's Steve King voting present. But this has been an epic struggle all week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi forced to defend one of her controversial and high-profile freshman members.
It's up to her to explain, but I do not believe that she understood the full weight of the words.
A reference to Minnesota Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who suggested those who support Israel have dual loyalty, and that being opposed to Prime Minister Netanyahu and, quote, the occupation is not the same as being anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic resolution noted that the House of Representatives condemns anti-Semitic acts and statements as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values that define the people of the United States. But after an internal battle among Democrats, the name of the resolution was changed to anti-hate, and it was broadened to include a wide range of bigotry victims: Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and others with verbal attacks, incitement, and violence.
We're sadly living in a time in this country where we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, a rise in Islamophobia, a rise in racism and bigotry.
Rallying to Omar's defense, some of her fellow high-profile freshmen. New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been tweeting her defense of Omar to nearly 3.5 million followers. There seems to be no problem at all with his zero-tolerance stance for simply asking about U.S. foreign policy. And Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib went even further.
I can tell you, when she speaks about those issues, what I hear is her trying to uplift my grandmother in Palestine, in the West Bank, and saying that there are real, actual facts.
American people and reduce the voice of dark special interest money that has influenced decisions in Congress before. It is also H.R. 1 about ending voter suppression. What are some people afraid of when people have a right to vote? It contains John Lewis's language, fighting voter suppression. It also contains a path to H.R. 4, which is to restore the Voting Rights Act to its fullest efficacy, as it was pushed back by the Supreme Court. And it also is a way to empower small donors and over big donors, so that the public again knows that everyone's voice is as important as anyone else's voice. Again, it was it's about confidence, about ending skepticism. I said in Texas a couple of days ago at such a town meeting on the subject of H.R. 1 and how related to voter suppression, that when we talk about voter suppression, we largely talk about reducing the hours that polling is available, the number of polling places, the number of days. It's about time and location, etc., in certain areas where polling places are closed. But one of the big suppressors of the vote is the suffocation of the airwaves by big, dark money, misleading the public, not telling the truth about what is at stake in the election, and public throws up their hand and then just decides not to vote. So this is about honoring our democracy. We said we were going to do it as we have proceeded, building on what we talked about last week. The committees continue to have introduce bills, have hearings on bills to lower the cost of prescription drugs and protect the Affordable Care Act, continue to have hearings on how we proceed on infrastructure, and H.R. 1 be on the floor today. We also said we were going to pass legislation to advance common sense gun violence prevention, and we did last week with H.R. 8. Next week we'll be launching our Equality Act to end the discrimination for the LGBTQ community, and we will also be launching our initiative to protect the Dreamers and the and temporary protected status persons in our country. One more bill before the end of the month will be, two more. One will be equal pay for equal work, which comes back to our original lower increased paycheck, lower health care costs, increased paycheck, and we will be on a path to pass once again the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. So we said these things during the campaign, and we are getting it done, and we're telling the public about the paths that we are on to get them turned into law to make a difference in the lives of the American people. I was glad to send to the Senate and therefore to the President the Land and Water Conservation Bill named for John Dingell the other day. So while so much else is swirling around here in terms of investigations, the Mueller investigation, the fundamental responsibility of Congress to have oversight over the executive branch and other items, we are doing our housekeeping as we keep proceeding with legislation for the good of the American people. I was particularly happy this week that we were joined by 4 senators who have been former members of the House. Senator Leader Chuck Schumer, Maria Cantwell, Ron Wyden, and Ed Markey. They joined us to launch our net neutrality legislation led by Mike Doyle, chair of the Technology Committee of the Energy and Commerce Committee, along with other members of the committee, including Chairman Pallone. Anna Eshoo was the godmother of that legislation. She too joined us. So we're busy with our legislative work, despite what we might read in the press.